you feel like you're losing in life? That's not because you're weak. This may be because you talk too much. Every time you share your plans, your energy leaks. Every time you seek validation, you give away your power. Machiavelli understood this. Real power moves in silence. If you've been feeling stuck, overlooked, or like the universe isn't responding to your manifestations, it's time to shift your approach. This video is about mastering inner discipline, silence, and focus to win, not just spiritually, but in every area of your life. You'll learn how ancient wisdom, combined with modern visualization techniques, can help you attract more by saying less. This is for you if you're tired of people doubting your dreams, if you're constantly second-guessing yourself, or if your results don't match the vision you've been holding. What if the only thing standing between you and your breakthrough is your inability to shut up and move in silence? What if silence is the most spiritual, powerful strategy you've been ignoring? My friend, stay with me, because once you really understand this mindset, your energy, your results, and your entire reality will change. Machiavelli's words echo across centuries, reflecting a harsh but undeniable truth about power dynamics. In a world where speech is often regarded as the ultimate tool for influence, silence may be the most potent weapon you possess. We think of power in terms of action, of words spoken with authority, yet silence can say more than any well-crafted speech ever could. It has the capacity to create fear, cultivate mystery, and position you above others, even without uttering a single word. Consider this: silence is not just the absence of sound, it is a deliberate withholding, a space left open for others to fill. In spiritual practices, silence holds sacred value. It is in the stillness that one connects with the divine, with one's own soul. However, in the Machiavellian sense, silence becomes a tool of control. By withholding speech, you create an enigmatic aura, a space that others must navigate, speculate upon, and ultimately respond to. Silence carries a power both subtle and profound. It is the calm before a storm, the deep breath before a decisive action. And yet, in its quiet form, it can manipulate the dynamics of any room. It is not passive. It is strategic. So, let me ask you, what if your silence says more about you than your words ever could? Silence, at its core, is not just about refraining from speaking, it is about mastery over oneself. The ancient Stoics understood this deeply, and so did the Buddhists. For both traditions, controlling speech was an expression of self-discipline, a key component of inner peace and wisdom. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, often reflects on the necessity of maintaining control over one's thoughts and actions, including speech. In his view, silence was not a mere absence but a conscious choice, a disciplined act of focusing on what truly matters. The Stoic idea of the inner citadel speaks to this. It is the fortress of your mind, the place where you remain grounded, no matter what chaos rages outside. In the silence of the citadel, one can reflect, recalibrate, and reconnect with their inner strength. Silence allows you to step out of the noise of the world, to observe, to respond from a place of thoughtfulness rather than reaction. It is in this stillness that true power is born, not through endless speech, but through the mastery of the moment. In the Buddhist tradition, silence is regarded as a form of communion with the divine. When we speak less, we attune ourselves more fully to the present, to the world around us. It is in the silence that we connect to the universal intelligence, an intelligence that speaks through the stillness, not the noise. The act of being silent is a conscious practice of mindfulness, of observing the moment as it is, without judgment, without interruption. True power lies in silence, not as an escape but as a foundation. In stillness, you are anchored. And from this silence, you can act with clarity, presence, and purpose. Machiavelli, ever the student of power dynamics, understood that controlling perception is key to influence. His philosophy was not rooted in brute force or visible domination but in strategic restraint. The silence, when used correctly, is not a void, it is a weapon. A well-timed silence creates space, forces others to act, and gives you the advantage. As he famously said, "He who does not know how to be silent will not know how to speak." Look to history, and you'll find that silence has often been employed as a strategic move. Julius Caesar, on the eve of crossing the Rubicon, said little, allowing the gravity of his silence to speak volumes. He understood the power of withholding action, knowing that in moments of great importance, words can cloud judgment and actions can provoke unnecessary conflict. His silence allowed him to move with calculated precision, to let his next action speak louder than any speech could. In the modern world, silence operates in the same way. In business meetings, for example, those who remain silent often command the room. When you refuse to fill the silence with words, others begin to speak, to expose themselves, to reveal their intentions. It is a psychological principle. People fear the unknown, and silence creates just that. The unspoken space forces others to act, to react, to take the first step. You, in turn, hold the power to choose when and how you will respond. Silence is a form of strategy, a means of positioning yourself above others. It is like playing chess. You control the tempo, you dictate the pace, and in doing so, you force your opponents to reveal their moves first. Your silence, in essence, places you in control of the narrative. There is an undeniable psychological pull towards mystery, the unknown, the hidden. Human nature is wired to seek answers, to unravel the enigma. This desire for understanding is why silence, when wielded effectively, can become a tool of immense power. The person who speaks little becomes the subject of fascination, their silence often mistaken for depth, wisdom, or danger. When you hold your tongue, you create an aura of intrigue, and others are drawn to you, trying to decipher the meaning behind your stillness. In the spiritual realm, this aligns with the concept of the divine being hidden. In many traditions, God, or the divine force, is not something that can be fully understood or captured by words or images. It is in silence that we experience the sacred, a silence that, by its very nature, invites reverence and awe. Just as the divine remains elusive, so too does the silent person. Their presence becomes a kind of sacred mystery, something others must approach with care, respect, and curiosity. The power of silence lies in its ability to command respect. People are often drawn to those who withhold, those who don't reveal everything about themselves. This creates a dynamic where your presence alone, your mere being, carries authority. In relationships, for example, the silent person is often perceived as strong, confident, and potentially dangerous. Their silence acts as a form of control, a way to manage how others perceive them. It places you in a position of power, where others are constantly trying to understand you, but never quite can. Consider how silence affects dynamics in business or personal relationships. The more you speak, the more you reveal, and often, the more vulnerable you make yourself. But by remaining silent, you maintain a boundary, a space between you and others. People will fill the silence with their assumptions, questions, and desires, and this puts you in the position of control. While silence can be an incredible source of power, it is not a panacea. There are times when silence can become detrimental, even dangerous. In situations of injustice, moral responsibility, or when action is required, remaining silent can be an abdication of your duty. Machiavelli, in his wisdom, emphasized the importance of adaptability. The key is knowing when to break silence, to step out of the shadows, and to make your voice heard at the right moment. Silence can be an ally when you are gathering information, but in moments when something wrong is happening, when people are suffering or being deceived, silence becomes complicity. If you are aware of an injustice and choose to remain silent, you have allowed your power to be misused. True power does not simply observe, it acts when it is necessary. This is where discernment comes into play. Discernment is the ability to judge when silence is appropriate and when speaking out is required. In the spiritual traditions of the East, this is often described as the wisdom to know when to act and when to remain still. Silence is not an excuse to avoid responsibility or to stay hidden from conflict. Instead, It is a conscious decision, a strategic move, to hold your tongue until the right moment. But that moment will come. And when it does, your silence should be replaced with words that are measured, powerful, and purposeful. Machiavelli himself spoke of the need for rulers to adapt, to know when to act boldly and when to retreat. Silence, in this context, is not a static state. It is dynamic, shifting as the circumstances require. The ability to break silence at the right time is as important as the ability to remain silent in the first place. It's a dance of timing, awareness, and wisdom. The spiritual lesson here is one of balance, understanding when to speak, when to act, and when silence becomes a shield rather than a weapon. In a world that celebrates constant noise, visibility, and performance, silence can be a powerful form of resistance. It's easy to fall into the trap of believing that power is synonymous with loudness, with constant activity. Modern society pushes us to perform, to be constantly active, to always be visible. But true power often lies in the ability to be still, to observe, to be present. Silence is not a sign of passivity, it is an active choice. It is the power of being fully present without the need to fill the space with unnecessary words or actions. There is an ancient spiritual principle that the ego seeks attention, but the soul understands the value of stillness. The ego constantly craves validation, recognition, and praise, often through words, social media, or performance. But the soul, deeply connected to the universe, finds strength in silence. It is in the stillness that we find clarity, strength, and direction. To embody this power of presence, you must first master the art of silence, to stand firm, grounded, and unshaken by the distractions around you. This is not about withdrawing from the world, but about engaging with it from a place of inner strength, not desperation. When you are truly present, you exude a magnetic energy. People are drawn to that stillness, that peace. It is a quiet strength that does not need to shout for attention because it naturally commands it. The silent person does not need to perform. Their mere presence speaks volumes. They carry with them a calm authority that is felt by others, without a single word being spoken. There's a powerful quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson: "Let your presence speak so loudly that your voice becomes unnecessary." It encapsulates this idea perfectly. True power is not in what you say, but in how you show up in the world. When you master the art of presence, of being fully present in your silence, you embody a force far stronger than mere words could ever create. Now let's delve into how silence can be applied strategically in various areas of life, allowing you to harness its power more consciously. Silence is not just an abstract concept. It is a practical tool that, when used effectively, can shape outcomes and influence dynamics. In negotiations, silence becomes a form of psychological leverage. When you withhold your thoughts or responses, you force the other party to fill the void. The pause creates tension, causing them to second-guess themselves and reconsider their position. A well-timed silence can be the difference between securing a favorable deal or losing ground. When you remain silent after presenting your terms or asking a question, you are not passive. You are actively creating a space for reflection, negotiation, and potentially the other party's concession. During conflict resolution, silence can be used as a de-escalation tool. Often, in heated moments, people's emotions lead to impulsive reactions. In such situations, maintaining silence allows the intensity of the moment to subside. It gives everyone involved the opportunity to breathe, reflect, and regain composure before speaking again. The person who controls their tongue in these moments exudes emotional intelligence, knowing that not every situation requires immediate verbal confrontation. The act of pausing allows space for clarity and insight, enabling more thoughtful responses. In online interactions, silence takes on an even more powerful role. The Internet, where people often respond impulsively and without reflection, provides the perfect arena for strategic silence. Whether in social media debates, emails, or comments, choosing not to respond immediately gives you control over the narrative. It is not a retreat, it is a deliberate step back to think, to reconsider your words, and to decide whether or not engagement is worth your time. In this world of instant reactions, silence is often mistaken for weakness, but it is, in reality, a sign of strength and self-discipline. In spiritual practice, silence is central. Meditation, prayer, and contemplation are all deeply rooted in the power of silence. The quiet space between thoughts is where clarity arises. By cultivating intentional silence in your daily life, you create the mental and spiritual space necessary to connect with your deeper self and the divine. Silence becomes the canvas on which your inner wisdom is painted. Encouraging silence in all these areas requires mindfulness. It's not just about refraining from speaking, but about responding thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. Silence is a boundary. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate, and you don't need to explain everything. Silence can be a statement of self-respect, a declaration that your energy and attention are precious and not to be given away without careful consideration. As we conclude, let's reflect on the immense power that silence holds. It is both a weapon and a sanctuary, a tool of strategic control and a refuge for the soul. Silence allows us to maintain our dignity, to step back from the chaos, and to observe life with a detached clarity that others may lack. When we are silent, we do not simply withdraw, we affirm our power and our presence, allowing others to feel the weight of our stillness. But here's the essential question: are you loud with insecurity or silent with clarity? The loud voice is often driven by fear, the fear of being overlooked, the fear of not being heard, the fear of being vulnerable. On the other hand, the silent voice is grounded in certainty and self-awareness. It speaks volumes without uttering a single word. Take a moment to reflect on how you use silence in your own life. Is it a space of power for you, or is it a void you seek to fill? Consider the ways in which silence can refine your presence, your relationships, and your decisions. Embrace the opportunity to practice silence as both a weapon and a sanctuary, and recognize that sometimes saying nothing is the most powerful thing you can do. To end, let me leave you with this profound insight from the philosopher Lao Tzu: silence is a source of great strength. In silence, we connect with the wisdom of the universe, and in stillness, we find the peace that transcends all words. That brings us to the end of our exploration into the power of silence. I invite you to integrate this practice into your life, to cultivate presence, to choose your words carefully, and to wield silence as a tool for wisdom and influence.